quiet tension filled the small courtroom the moment she walked in. The woman, known to everyone as Rena, held her documents close to her chest like they were her only protection. Her face showed no anger, only a kind of tiredness that comes from fighting for too long. She sat down at the wooden table on the left side, trying not to make eye contact with anyone. She didn't want sympathy, she didn't want attention. She just wanted fairness. But fairness was the one thing she wasn't getting. The judge assigned to her case had already made several comments during previous hearings that made her uncomfortable. He rarely looked at her directly. He rushed her explanations, as if her words were wasting the court's time. When the other party spoke, he listened patiently. When she spoke, he interrupted. Anyone watching could feel that something wasn't right, but Rena didn't argue. She believed that staying silent and respectful would help her case. Today was the hearing that would decide everything. She took a deep breath as the bailiff called her name. She rose slowly, feeling every eye in the room on her. She reminded herself that she had done nothing wrong. She had come to court only to clear a misunderstanding that had already turned her life upside down. But even with all her preparation, she could sense that the judge wasn't interested in hearing her truth. When the judge entered, he didn't greet the room with the usual warmth a judge might show. Instead, his tone was flat and impatient, as though he already knew how he wanted the day to go. He called the case number and glanced at the papers in front of him. "Rena," he said, not even using her full name. "We will keep this brief." She nodded politely, though inside. A small voice whispered that cases were supposed to be fair, not brief. The other side's lawyer stood up first. He spoke confidently, presenting his arguments as if everything he said was undeniable truth. Rena listened quietly, but something inside her twisted. Almost every detail he shared was incomplete or exaggerated. Twice she opened her mouth to clarify, but the judge held up his hand to silence her. She lowered her gaze, her fingers curling round the folder in her lap. When it was finally her turn, she stood up and tried to speak clearly. "Your Honor, with respect, I would like to present," but the judge interrupted her again. "We've heard enough. Please stick to the important points." She swallowed hard. "These are important points, sir." The judge sighed loudly, making it seem like she was wasting everyone's time. "You have 2 minutes. 2 minutes." After months of struggle, countless forms, and endless stress, she had only 2 minutes to defend herself. The courtroom felt smaller. Her heart beat faster. She didn't panic, but she felt a sting inside her chest, a sting that came not from fear, but from unfairness. She opened her folder and tried to show the documents she had brought. "These papers can prove." "Put them down," the judge said sharply. "We will not review unnecessary material right now." The other party's lawyer smirked. It was a small expression, but Rena saw it clearly. It made her feel even smaller, like she didn't belong in that room. People whispered softly in the back rows, sensing that something was off. A few of them exchanged glances, wondering why the judge was refusing to even look at the evidence. The judge leaned back in his chair, tapping his pen impatiently. "This case is straightforward," he said. "There is no need for a long explanation." "But sir," Rena said softly, "the information in this folder changes everything." "If you could just—" "I said no," he snapped. Silence spread across the room. Rena looked down at her papers, her hands trembling just slightly. She wasn't angry. She was disappointed. She had trusted the system. She had trusted that truth mattered. She came here alone because she believed she could stand on her own. But the way the judge treated her made her realize that sometimes the truth isn't heard. until someone forces it into the light. She took a slow breath and sat down. For a moment she thought about giving up, letting the judge rush the decision and end the whole thing. It would be easier, less stressful, but in her heart she knew she couldn't walk away. Not when she had done nothing wrong. Not when she had worked so hard to gather all the right evidence. Not when her entire future depended on this moment. The judge began to scribble something on his notepad. Based on what we have heard, Rena suddenly stood up again. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried strength. Your Honor, before you make any decision, I request that you allow me to present one document. Just one. People leaned forward. Even the bailiff raised his head, surprised by her tone. The judge looked irritated. We cannot keep delaying. Please sit down. But this time, Rena didn't sit. She gently opened her folder and held up a paper, a single white sheet protected in a clear cover. Her hands were no longer shaking. Her voice was steady. This is not just any document, she said calmly. This is proof of my legal status. The judge froze. The courtroom grew so silent that even the ceiling fan sounded loud. The judge stared at the document from across the room, his expression shifting not completely, but enough for people to notice. It was the first time he looked genuinely unsure. He opened his mouth, closed it, then leaned slightly forward as if trying to read the words from a distance. Rena didn't move. She held the paper up with quiet confidence, letting the weight of her words fill the room. She didn't rush. She didn't shake. She didn't whisper. She stood tall, even though moments ago the judge made her feel invisible. This document, she continued, is recognized by federal law. It affects my rights in this case, and it must be reviewed before any judgment is made. Someone in the audience let out a small gasp. The opposing lawyer shifted uncomfortably, his earlier confidence fading, for the first time since the hearing began. The judge didn't interrupt her. His eyes moved slowly from the paper to her face, as if trying to understand how he had overlooked something so important, how he had underestimated her, how he had almost made a decision without giving her a fair chance. Rena lowered the paper slightly, but kept it visible. I am asking for nothing special, she said. Only fairness. Only the right to be heard. The judge cleared his throat, his tone suddenly more careful. Bring the document to the bench. Everyone watched as Rena stepped forward, her footsteps calm, steady. She placed the paper gently on the judge's desk. He picked it up with both hands, his eyes scanning the text with growing concern. For the first time, he realized the truth. He had misjudged her. He had treated her like someone small, someone powerless, but she was anything but powerless. Something in the room shifted, like the start of a storm that no one saw coming. The judge leaned back, clearly unsettled. He wasn't irritated anymore. He wasn't impatient. He looked worried. Rena walked back to her seat quietly. She didn't smile. She didn't look around. She simply sat down and folded her hands on the table. She had done her part. Now the judge had to do his. The room remained silent as the judge kept reading. Each second felt heavy. People exchanged glances, whispering softly. They all knew the hearing had changed direction. The judge could no longer ignore her. He could no longer brush her aside. Her legal status demanded attention and respect, and this was only the beginning. The courtroom was so quiet that even the soft clicking of the old ceiling fan felt loud. After the short break, everyone returned to their seats. The judge, who had already shown a harsh tone toward her earlier, came back looking even more impatient. He sat down, straightened his papers, and glanced at her as if she was just wasting the court's time. But she didn't look nervous anymore. She sat with a calm expression, her hands folded neatly on the table. A sense of quiet confidence had replaced the earlier discomfort she felt. A few people in the audience who had noticed the sudden shift in her attitude whispered to each other, trying to understand what had changed. Even the opponent's lawyer sensed something different and became unusually alert. The judge cleared his throat and said, "All right. Let's continue. You were saying you wanted to present something." His tone suggested he still didn't expect anything meaningful from her. She stood up slowly. There was nothing dramatic in her movement, nothing forceful or confrontational. Just a steady, respectful action. She reached into her bag and placed a neatly arranged file on the table. "Yes, Your Honor," she said gently. "I have new documents that directly relate to this case." The judge raised an eyebrow, more annoyed than interested. "We cannot accept random documents in the middle of a hearing. You should have known that." She didn't argue. Instead, she pushed the file slightly forward so it was easier for him to see. The room was so silent that even the rustling of the folder could be heard. "Your Honor," she said softly, "these papers include my verified legal status. They change the entire nature of the case." For a moment, the judge froze. Her opponent's lawyer also looked unsettled. Those words, verified legal status, carried weight. They didn't belong to someone who didn't know the system. They belonged to someone who understood it deeply. The judge leaned back in his chair with a sigh, clearly irritated, but now forced to take the situation more seriously. "Fine," he said, signaling the court officer. "Bring the documents." The officer carried the file to the judge and stepped aside. The judge opened the folder lazily at first, still assuming it wouldn't be important. But the moment his eyes scanned the first page, his posture changed. His eyebrows slowly rose. His face, moments earlier rigid with disapproval, softened into something that looked suspiciously like surprise. He flipped to the next page, then the next, faster now. His fingers trembled slightly. On the other side of the courtroom, the opposing lawyer leaned forward, anxiously watching the judge's reaction. The audience seemed to lean forward too, sensing that something major was unfolding right before them. The judge finally stopped turning pages and looked up at her with a completely different expression. For the first time since she entered this courtroom, he spoke to her with respect. Why did you not present these documents earlier?" Her voice was calm and steady. "I was not given the chance, Your Honor. Every time I tried to speak earlier, I was told to sit down." The judge's eyes dropped, and he shifted uncomfortably. He knew that was true. Even the court staff remembered how abruptly he had dismissed her earlier. The judge tried to recover his composure. "These papers," he started, clearing his throat, "they verify that you are legally registered under the Federal Protection Program and officially recognized as a legal advisor at the national level." He paused as the room gasped quietly. "Is this correct?" "Yes, Your Honor." Her opponent's lawyer instantly turned pale. He knew the implications. She wasn't just some confused individual defending herself. She wasn't someone who lacked understanding of the law. She was someone who had more legal authority than almost everyone in the room, except maybe the judge himself. And she knew exactly what she was doing. The judge looked back at the file. "This means the entire approach to this case must be reconsidered." His tone held no anger now, only caution and unexpected respect. She nodded slightly. "That is why I tried to explain earlier, but I understand proceedings can get rushed." The judge inhaled deeply, then said, "Your legal status gives you the right to request a full review, the right to represent yourself at an expert level, and the right to challenge procedural mistakes." He lifted his eyes again. "Are you doing that now?" "I am, Your Honor." Her opponent gulped, and for the first time, he spoke up. "Your Honor, this is extremely unexpected. We request time to review the documents." The judge turned to him sharply. "You had time before." She attempted to speak early in the hearing. "You dismissed her." His voice wasn't shouting, but the firmness in it made the lawyer sit down quickly, words dying in his throat. The audience murmured again, feeling the sudden shift of power. A few people who had silently judged her earlier now looked embarrassed. The court officers exchanged glances, surprised at how everything had turned around in a matter of minutes. The judge took a moment to recompose himself, then said, "I need to ask you something. Why did you wait until now to reveal your status?" She took a deep breath, her expression softening. "Because, Your Honor, I wanted this case to be treated fairly without my title influencing the process. But when I saw the disrespect, the assumptions, and the unfair treatment, I realized staying silent wasn't an option anymore." Her words struck the entire courtroom like a gentle but undeniable truth. Even the judge lowered his eyes for a second, recognizing that he had indeed acted with bias earlier. He straightened his robe and said, "I appreciate your honesty, and I apologize for the earlier disregard." She nodded politely, not using the moment to insult or shame him. Her grace only made the room respect her more. The judge turned toward the opposing side. "Given her legal standing, the earlier claims against her hold no basis. This case should never have been presented in this form." The lawyer desperately tried to salvage the situation. "Your Honor, we didn't know, but you should have treated her with respect, regardless," the judge cut in. His tone had finality in it. "And she has provided proof that changes the entire foundation of this hearing." The judge looked back at her. "Do you wish to continue with this case, or would you like it dismissed entirely?" She responded with calm dignity, "I want it dismissed, Your Honor. I want this matter to end peacefully." The judge nodded. "Then it is dismissed." The gavel hit the desk gently, not with force, but with meaning. The sound echoed through the courtroom. A strange silence followed, the kind that comes when people don't know whether to feel guilty, impressed, or both. The opposing lawyer quietly gathered his papers, unable to meet her eyes. The judge stepped down from his seat with a thoughtful expression, clearly humbled by what had happened. As she prepared to leave, a court staff member approached her softly and said, "Ma'am, I just want to say I'm glad you spoke up. You handled everything with so much dignity." She smiled warmly and replied, "Thank you. Everyone deserves fairness. That's all I wanted." As she walked out of the courtroom, sunlight poured in through the tall windows of the hallway. She stepped into that light with a sense of peace, knowing she had fought for herself with grace, not anger. Her legal status may have turned the case around, but it was her calm strength that truly changed everything. Outside, people whispered about her with awe, replaying the moment she placed the documents on the table. They knew they had witnessed something rare, someone correcting injustice, not with shouting, but with truth. And the judge who had once treated her unfairly, he never forgot that day. It became a silent lesson for him, a reminder that every person who stands before him deserves respect, no matter how ordinary they may appear. She walked away quietly, but the impact she left behind was louder than anything she said in that courtroom.